my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. Hi, my name is Kendall, and here we talk about all things makeup and all things makeup related and sometimes other stuff. Today I am doing a worst palettes of 2020 video. Sitting down the other day, and fun fact about me, I love making lists, and I was just sitting down thinking about my least favorite eyeshadow palettes that I tried last year, and as you can see, I've got a whole page of them. So I was making a list of the palettes that were the most disappointing. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. They were just not lived up to my expectations, or there's something about them that just didn't wow me. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to sit down and just talk about the palettes that didn't really knock my socks off in 2020. I just want to preface this video by saying if you are a diehard fan of one of the palettes that I mentioned in this video, that's okay. You know, a lot of these palettes I do use and I do like using. There's just either something about them that I just don't find either worth the price, or there's just something kind of funky about them that I don't like. And before we jump into it, if you could just take a quick second to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up, that would mean so much to me and I would appreciate it oh so much. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to the most disappointing palettes of 2020. Okay, so the first palette that I want to talk about is the One Size Beauty palette by Starr. So this one, I hate the packaging of this. This kind of reminds me of like a math problem or something. And then on the inside, there is nothing special at all about this palette. It's a fine neutral palette. Like it's okay. You could get the same exact quality in an e.l.f. eyeshadow palette. It's literally nothing special at all. And if you're thinking, wow, Kendall's being kind of harsh about this, it's because Starr really pisses me off. I was really excited when I saw that he was coming out with his own brand, and I was excited to pick this up because I was like, oh, a nice neutral palette. Okay, it's kind of boring, but I'll get it. You will never see a One Size Beauty product on my channel from this point forward. I will never purchase a One Size Beauty product ever again. And that is because if you have seen the video circulating that Starr was in over this past 2 weeks, you will know why. I have zero tolerance for people that are mocking the pandemic. I think it's disgusting behavior, and it really pisses me off because not only are you a big influencer in the makeup world, you also are a brand owner. He has over 4 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, and this is how he chooses to use that platform. It really pisses me off. It's super irresponsible. While the palette itself isn't disappointing, he is disappointing. So I thought I would put that in there. And I really highly encourage you, if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go look it up. I will not and cannot support that kind of behavior, and I think it's just gross. It's gross. All right, the next palette that I want to talk about is actually a highlighting palette, and that is the Scott Barnes Illuminator palette. This was just so not it for me. For the price, was expecting so much more. I just had to check the price. This is a $68 highlighting palette. I didn't pay that. I paid about $30 for it, which I'm okay with, but for $68, this is such a ripoff in my personal opinion. I was expecting this to be like beaming highlight. It's not at all. It's okay. Like every time I use it, I like the way it looks when I use it, but not for the price point. I would 1000% reach for my other highlighters in my collection over this. Just, it's not worth it. It's only that expensive because of the Scott Barnes name. And while again, it's not bad, it's just very lackluster from what I was expecting. I have a 2-for-1 special for these next palettes, and those are the Urban Decay, the little Decades palettes that they came out with. I actually did a video on the 1993 palette, and I also picked up the 2000s palette just because if you bought 2, you got a bit of a discount. These are, okay, so the shadows in here are fine, and I think they're cute little palettes, but they were like $25. And when you think about the fact that these are $25 and then the Natasha Denona like mini palettes are $25, it really kind of puts that in perspective. Like, I was a little disappointed by these. They're not bad, and I have no intention of getting rid of these anytime soon. I don't really know what I was expecting with these, but yeah, just a little disappointing overall. And also the size of the palettes, I mean, that's my own fault for not like looking into that, but look how tiny they are. They're so small. I was expecting them to be a little bit bigger than this. All right, next up is the Melt Cosmetics Smoke Sessions palette. So this one, I like Melt Cosmetics a lot, don't get me wrong, but sometimes their shimmer shadows are either really good or really bad. In this particular palette, for me, these shimmers down here are so hard panned and they're so incredibly crumbly. Like, let me see. I'm going to pick up the shade Blue Dream right here on the end. And I just went in, and can you see how just crumbly that shimmer is? Like on the eyes with a sticky base under it, it's fine, but it's just so crumbly, and it's kind of hard to work with when you're trying to use them because they go everywhere and it's just Fallout City. So while I really love melts, I really love melt as a whole, but the shimmers just sometimes are really, really difficult to work with. But it's very hit or miss because I have both the Melt Beetlejuice palettes, and I didn't have that problem at all with those shimmers. For whatever reason, in this palette in particular, it was just Crumble City. I feel so bad for mentioning this palette because I really wanted it to work. It is the newest eyeshadow palette that KVD Vegan Beauty came out with. It is called the Edge of Reality eyeshadow palette. This is now on like super sale. I believe right now at this moment it's on sale for $30 at on KVD's website, and then I believe you can take an additional 30% off. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what I saw. First of all, let me just say, I love the fact that they made a fully recyclable palette. I love that. I actually really, really love the packaging on this. I know a lot of people didn't because they thought it was kind of cheap, and I'm like, okay, well, it's cardboard, so yeah, it's cheap. But I just thought it was so pretty looking. I love the packaging. I love the feel of it. I love the fact that it was recyclable. I love it. And you know what? Even on the inside, I was like, wow, this is such a pretty palette. Colors are stunning. They swatch fine. But I sat down one day and tried to do a look with this, and I just couldn't. The shimmers in here are so good. They're so buttery. They're so creamy. But the mattes, like over here, these mattes are just bad. I sat down and I found it so hard to sit down and create like an actual look with this palette. And I'm the kind of person where I just want to go into one palette. Like, I don't want to have to reach into other palettes for different shades. And I just found this was just lacking so much. There's not a deep enough matte in this palette to smoke out anything or deepen up anything. I just thought it was going to be so much better than it is. And it was just a little disappointing. I'm going to keep playing around with it. Hopefully, kind of get inspired to do something with it. But even like the tutorials that I've watched on YouTube, they kind of say the same thing, where it's like, yeah, it looks like there's a lot of colors in here and a lot of options, but there's really only so much you can do. And I don't know, it's just lacking something. Next disappointment is every single Kylie Cosmetics palette I've ever bought. Again, they're fine. They're just fine. Like this one, I don't even think I ever showed on camera. This is the Kendall Jenner palette, and I only bought this because my name's on it. The shades are fine. They're not overly pigmented. There's nothing special about these palettes. I like them. The Sailor collection that she came out with, I really like it. I have a good time using this palette, but the formula is just disappointing for the price. They're overpriced. That's what they are. These palettes are only priced the way they are because it's got Kylie Jenner's name on it. They're just disappointing when I think of like all my ColourPop eyeshadow palettes that have like amazing 10 out of 10 formulas where they're like under $12, and these are in like the $40 range. It's kind of like, it's a little disappointing, but I do enjoy these. They're just overpriced for what they are. This was the most underwhelming palette I bought this year. So this is the Too Faced Pumpkin Spice palette. So I've tried using this multiple times, and these shimmers are just so crumbly in here. And I don't know if that's just this palette and maybe I got a dud, or if that's with everything, but Every single shimmer in here is just Crumble City, USA. The fallout is horrible, and hold on, I didn't need it at all because it is so similar to the Gingerbread Extra Spicy palette. Like, the reason I don't like the Pumpkin Spice palette is because of the shimmers. Take away the shimmers. Wait, did you guys see that? It's magnets. Oh my god, how fun. Oh, okay, they're not like good magnets. Okay, so the reason I don't like the Pumpkin Spice palette is because of the shimmers. Take away the shimmers and you have the Gingerbread Extra Spicy palette. So that was a little disappointing to figure that one out. So now moving on to the palettes that I either gave away or flat out returned. The Sassy by Savannah palette, I've done 2 videos on that palette. That was probably one of the worst palettes of 2020. It was just, the color payoff was not there. The e.l.f. J. Kissa to the Rescue palette, that one was disappointing in the sense of, I feel like I used it once and it was really nice, and then it developed a hard pan. Oh, it was the weirdest thing. It was like that initial layer of pigment was really good and really pigmented, but the second and third time I went in to use it, it was just really hard and really chalky. Okay, this one came out, I believe, at the very end of 2019, but I figured I'd throw it in anyway. The Morphe Manny MUA palette. That was a horrible palette in my opinion. I love Manny MUA. He's one of my favorite creators on the platform. I absolutely love him. Love his own brand, Lunar Beauty. Everything in Lunar Beauty is 10 out of 10 amazing, but that Morphe collab, that was not a good palette. In my personal opinion, that was just like, it was like really bad Morphe quality. Like Morphe's quality is all over the place, and that was one of the worst palettes I feel like they put out. Oh, another palette that was bad and not just disappointing was that the Morphe, it was just a pastel palette. I'll throw a picture of it up right here. It was all pastels, and there was some like pressed glitters in it. That one was bad. That was just a flat out bad palette. The last palette that I'm going to mention, I'm afraid you guys are going to get mad at me. This is not, let me repeat, this is not a bad palette. Just for me, what I personally like, it was disappointing for me. And this is a palette that I actually returned. I never return makeup because I know they just end up throwing it away because they can't resell it. So whenever I do get makeup in and I don't like it or I don't use it anymore, I do give it to a friend that wants it so I know it'll get, you know, good use out of. This one was too expensive for me to do that, and I am talking about Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity palette. I'm so sorry. It was too many shimmers, and you got like one or two, you got like 2 mattes in that whole palette, and I just, again, personally, for personal preference, if I'm gonna go in with a palette, I wanna be able to just use that palette. I don't wanna have to look around to find a deeper shade to like deepen things up or smoke things out. The shades were beautiful. The shimmers were stunning. Just for me, for $78, that was just, it was just too much. If it were less expensive, if it were like in the $40, $50 range, I probably would have kept it, but just for close to $80, I just couldn't do it because, I don't know, for personal preference, it just wasn't for me. I would love to try a actual like mothership palette from Pat McGrath. I have my eye on the Divine Rose 2 one. I know she just launched it in like the special pink packaging. I would love to get that palette. And I know I said once I hit 1,000 subscribers, I would treat myself to one because they are $125, but I don't know if I can justify that. I don't know if I can spend that much money on an eyeshadow palette. I will be the first to admit, I buy so much makeup and I spend way too much money on makeup, but $125 for one palette, and I'm not saying that the quality of that palette isn't worth it, because I'm sure it is. The way people talk about it, like everyone's like, yeah, it's kind of worth that price point. Just, I don't know, I just can't do it. I want it, I do want it, but I just can't do it. Maybe one day. I don't know. Maybe if I hit 2,000 subscribers, then I'll buy it. All right, so those were my most disappointing palettes that I tried in 2020. Let me know down below what your most disappointing palette of 2020 is, or any makeup product in general that you can think of. I'd love to hear it. Let me know if you've tried any of the palettes that I've mentioned. Let me know what you think about them. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.